In the midst of a luxurious event, a millionaire proudly displays his blind daughter of only 4 years old. Suddenly, a poor girl bursts into the party and screams in despair, "Don't eat the cake!" The warning reveals a cruel conspiracy to poison the child in front of everyone. And the act of courage from the little stranger forever transforms the fate of this family. The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Evergreen Estate, the crown jewel of Boston's affluent Beacon Hill neighborhood. Harrison, Wells stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his study, watching gardeners prepare the grounds for today's charity luncheon. At 42, Harrison had everything money could buy, except what mattered most. "Daddy," a small voice called from the doorway. Harrison turned, his stern expression instantly softening. "Good morning, my little butterfly. How did you sleep?" 4-year-old. Olivia Wells sat in her custom wheelchair, her auburn curls framing a delicate face. Though her eyes were a striking blue, they didn't focus on her father. They hadn't focused on anything since birth. Born with a rare optic nerve condition, Olivia had never seen the world around her. The wheelchair was necessary due to a neurological complication that affected her mobility. "I dreamed about Mommy again," Olivia said, as her nurse Eleanor gently pushed her chair into the room. "She was singing to me." Harrison knelt beside his daughter, taking her small hand in his. "Your mother had the most beautiful voice in the world." It had been 18 months since Catherine Wells had been taken from them in a devastating car accident. The drunk driver who caused the crash had walked away with minor injuries, while Catherine had succumbed to her injuries at the hospital. Harrison still couldn't bring himself to drive past that intersection. "Will there be children at the party today?" Olivia asked, her fingers finding the silk tie at her father's neck and tracing its pattern. "I'm afraid not, Butterfly. It's mostly boring grown-ups talking about boring grown-up things," Harrison replied, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "But the string quartet I hired knows your favorite Mozart piece, and Chef Marcus is preparing your favorite chocolate mousse." Elena, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who had been with the family since Olivia's birth, spoke up. "Ms. Parker called again about the guest list. She needs final approval for the seating arrangements." Harrison sighed. Diane Parker, his event coordinator, was relentlessly efficient but exhaustingly thorough. This charity luncheon had consumed his life for weeks now. As the CEO of Wells Pharmaceuticals, he had organized countless corporate events, but this one was different. This was personal. "Tell her I'll call her back in 30 minutes, Harrison said, turning his attention back to Olivia. "First, I need to have breakfast with the most important person in my life." In the sunlit breakfast nook, Harrison watched as Elena helped Olivia navigate her plate. Despite her challenges, his daughter had developed remarkable independence. She insisted on feeding herself whenever possible, her small fingers carefully exploring the edges of her plate to map its contents. "Daddy, is your medicine going to help children like me see someday?" Olivia asked between bites of fresh strawberries. Harrison felt his throat tighten. Wells Pharmaceuticals had recently entered Phase 3 trials for a revolutionary treatment targeting congenital blindness. The results were promising but not miraculous. It wasn't a cure, merely a potential treatment that might improve visual perception in some patients. "We hope so, Butterfly. Our scientists are working very hard," he answered honestly. "That's why this luncheon is so important. We're raising money for more research." "Then I hope you raise all the money in the world," Olivia declared, with the innocent conviction only a child could muster. Harrison smiled, though his heart ached. He would give every penny of his billions to restore his daughter's sight. The clinical trials were partially funded by his personal fortune, but FDA approval was still years away. For many children, including Olivia, it might come too late. After breakfast, the mansion transformed into a hive of activity. Caterers bustled through the kitchen, florists arranged elaborate centerpieces, and security personnel established checkpoints around the perimeter. Harrison had invited 50 of Boston's wealthiest and most influential citizens, bankers, politicians, old money families, and fellow pharmaceutical executives. Each invitation came with the expectation of a substantial donation. Mr. Wells, Congressman Richardson's office called to confirm his attendance. His assistant informed him as Harrison reviewed last-minute details in his office. Also, Senator, Mitchell may be arriving late due to a committee meeting. Harrison nodded distractedly. James Richardson was a rising star in Congress, championing healthcare reform and research funding. His support could accelerate FDA approval processes. Mitchell, on the other hand, was a necessary political ally, but personally distasteful, the kind of politician who followed polling numbers rather than principles. And Mr. Blackwood, Harrison asked, referring to his chief rival in the pharmaceutical industry. Confirmed attendance with his wife, the assistant replied. Harrison allowed himself a small smile. Edward Blackwood controlled Nexus Pharmaceuticals, Wells' primary competitor. Their relationship was complicated, fierce rivals in the boardroom but reluctant allies in research advancement. Blackwood had no children of his own, but had established a foundation for rare pediatric disorders after his niece was diagnosed with leukemia. By noon, the estate gleamed in readiness. The central ballroom had been transformed with tables adorned in cream and gold linens. A stage held both the string quartet and a podium for speeches. Behind the podium hung a massive screen that would display research footage and testimonials from families affected by childhood blindness. Harrison found Olivia in her room, where Elena was helping her into a pale blue dress that matched her eyes. "You look beautiful," Harrison said from the doorway. Olivia turned toward his voice. "Do I look like Mommy?" Harrison swallowed hard. "Yes, Butterfly. You have her smile and her kind heart." "I wish she could be here today," Olivia said softly. "She is," Harrison replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's always with us." As he helped Elena adjust the ribbons in Olivia's hair, Harrison's phone buzzed with a text from security. The first guests were arriving. Straightening his shoulders, he prepared to become Harrison Wells, the confident pharmaceutical magnate and philanthropist. But first, he leaned down to kiss his daughter's cheek. "Ready to charm Boston's elite?" he asked. Olivia nodded solemnly. "I'll be the best co-host ever." As Harrison wheeled his daughter toward the grand staircase, where an elevator had been installed for her accessibility, he had no way of knowing that miles away, in Boston's impoverished Roxbury neighborhood, events were unfolding that would forever change their lives. In a small, crumbling apartment, a little girl was about to escape the clutches of social services, a girl whose extraordinary sense of smell and desperate courage would shatter the careful facade of Harrison's world, and ultimately save it. The rusted fire escape outside apartment 3B of the Harmony Heights housing project hadn't been inspected in decades. 5-year-old Lily Morgan didn't care about building codes as she dangled her legs through the metal bars, watching the busy street below. What she did care about was the empty feeling in her stomach and the hushed voices coming from inside the apartment. "She's just a child, Ms. Wilson. She needs stability, structure." The woman's voice was professionally sympathetic, the kind adults used when they thought they knew what was best. "I've raised her since she was 2. Grandma Rose's voice was weaker than usual, but still defiant. "When my daughter passed away, I promised I'd keep Lily safe." Lily pulled her knees to her chest, trying to make herself smaller. She knew what passed away meant, though adults never said the real words. Her mother had gotten very sick very fast. Before the sickness, she had worked at Bellini's bakery, bringing home sweet-smelling leftovers and teaching Lily about different ingredients. "Your recent hospital stay concerns us," the social worker continued. "Your health is declining and the living conditions here—" "We manage just fine," Grandma Rose interrupted with a cough that betrayed her words. Lily pressed her face against the rusty bars. She wasn't supposed to be listening, but she wasn't. Supposed to be a lot of things: hungry, poor, motherless. The social worker had visited 3 times this month. Each time, Lily had been instructed to wear her cleanest clothes and smile politely. Each time, the woman's frown had deepened as she made notes on her clipboard. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom they shared, a bathroom with temperamental plumbing, and a kitchen living area with mismatched furniture collected from curbsides and charity shops. But it was home. The walls were covered with Lily's artwork and faded photographs of better days. Lily's stomach growled loudly, and she pressed her hand against it. Breakfast had been half a peanut butter sandwich. Lunch would probably be the other half, if she was lucky. The kitchen cupboards had grown increasingly bare since Grandma. Rose's latest bout of pneumonia had kept her from her part-time job at the laundromat. A car horn blared from the street below, drawing Lily's attention. A shiny black SUV had stopped at the traffic light. Inside, she could see children in the back seat, their faces illuminated by tablet screens. What would it be like, she wondered, to ride in a car like that? To have a device of your own, to never worry about having enough food? The voices inside grew louder. "I've brought the temporary custody papers," the social worker said. "Given your current condition, we believe it's in Lily's best interest to stay with a foster family until you're able to provide adequate care." "You can't take her," Grandma Rose's voice cracked. "She's all I have left." Lily's heart pounded against her ribs. Foster care. She'd heard whispered stories from other kids in the building. Siblings separated, belongings stuffed into garbage bags, strange new houses with strict rules. "Ms. Morgan, please be reasonable. This is temporary. Once your health improves, and you can demonstrate financial stability." "My pension check comes next week," Grandma Rose pleaded, "and the church food pantry opens tomorrow." Lily stood up on the fire escape, her worn sneakers silent against the metal. She had to do something. Grandma Rose needed her. They needed each other. Through the open window, she could see the social worker's navy blue blazer as the woman moved around their small living room. On the coffee table sat the woman's leather briefcase, partially open to reveal official-looking papers. "Where is Lily now?" the social worker asked. "I'd like to speak with her." "She's playing at a neighbor's," Grandma Rose lied. They had agreed on this story earlier, though the neighbor in question barely acknowledged their existence. Which neighbor exactly? The social worker's tone sharpened with suspicion. Lily knew she had only moments before they discovered she wasn't where she was supposed to be. With the agility born from playground adventures and necessity, she climbed down the fire escape, dropping the last few feet to the alley below. She landed in a puddle, splashing dirty water onto her already stained jeans. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting away from the woman who wanted to take her from Grandma Rose. Lily ran without direction at first, her small legs carrying her through familiar alleys and side streets. The neighborhood children called her Fast Lily for a reason. No one could catch her in tag, and no one would catch her now. After several blocks, she slowed her pace, realizing she needed a plan. Where could she go? How long would she need? To hide? Her mind raced through possibilities as she caught her breath in the shadow of a convenience store. The smell of fresh bread from the corner bodega made her stomach clench painfully. Mr. Guzman, the owner, sometimes gave her day-old pastries when Grandma Rose bought milk, but she had no money today, and Mr. Guzman's kindness only stretched so far. As Lily contemplated her next move, a newspaper caught her eye from a nearby stand. The front page showed a smiling man in an expensive suit. The headline read, "Wells, Pharmaceutical CEO hosts charity luncheon for blindness research." Lily couldn't read all the words, but she recognized the man's face. His advertisements for Wells Pharmaceuticals were all over the subway stations, healing tomorrow's generation today. The article mentioned something about Beacon Hill, which she knew was where rich people lived. An idea formed in Lily's mind, desperate and far-fetched. Rich people had food, lots of food. At a charity event, there would be even more, tables full of it if the TV shows Grandma Rose watched were anything to go by. Maybe she could sneak in, fill her pockets and bring something back for her grandmother. She had nothing to lose. With renewed purpose, Lily headed toward the nearest subway station. She didn't have money for a ticket, but she had become adept at slipping under the turnstiles when the station attendants weren't looking. It was wrong. Her mother had taught her that stealing was never okay, but hunger had a way of reshaping moral boundaries. The subway car was blissfully cool compared to the summer heat outside. Lily huddled in a corner seat, making herself as inconspicuous as possible. An elderly woman gave her a concerned look, but didn't say anything. 3 stops later, Lily exited into a different world. Beacon Hill was like something from a storybook. Clean streets lined with brick townhouses, window boxes overflowing with flowers, luxury cars parked along the curbs. Lily felt even more out of place in her dirty clothes and tangled hair. She didn't know exactly where to find the Wells mansion, but she followed the increasing signs of activity: catering vans, florists' trucks, and security personnel in dark suits. Eventually, she stood across the street from an imposing iron gate, beyond which sprawled a property more massive than her entire apartment building. Security guards checked the credentials of arriving guests, men in expensive suits and women in elegant dresses. Lily watched carefully, analyzing the pattern of arrivals, looking for any opportunity to slip inside unnoticed. Her chance came when a catering van pulled up to a side entrance. As the staff unloaded trays of food, Lily darted across the street and pressed herself against the perimeter wall. When no one was looking, she squeezed through a narrow gap where the wall met a large oak tree. The estate grounds were vast, with manicured gardens surrounding the imposing mansion. Lily kept to the shadows of hedges and trees, making her way toward the delicious smells wafting from what must be the kitchen area. As she crept closer to the house, she noticed an open window at ground level, perhaps a basement or service entrance. With one last glance to ensure no one was watching, Lily slipped inside, dropping silently onto a cold tile floor. She found herself in a wine cellar, surrounded by bottles in wooden racks that stretched from floor to ceiling. The air was cool and musty. A stone staircase led upward, and Lily could hear the bustling sounds of a busy kitchen above. Her heart pounded in her chest. She was inside the mansion of the richest man in Boston. Now she just needed to find food without getting caught. As she crept up the stairs, the smell of something familiar stopped her cold. Something that didn't belong among the delicious aromas of a fancy party. It was the bitter, distinctive scent of almonds, but not the sweet kind her mother had used in baking. These were bitter almonds, which her mother had once pointed out at the specialty market with a stern warning. "These can be dangerous, Lily. They contain a poison that smells unique. Never forget this smell. It means danger." Lily's hunger momentarily forgotten, she continued up the stairs, her small nose twitching as she followed the alarming scent. It led her toward the kitchen, where chefs in white coats bustled around preparing elaborate dishes. And there, on a rolling cart ready to be wheeled out to the guests, sat an elaborate multi-tiered cake, its white frosting decorated with delicate sugar flowers. To anyone else, it looked like a masterpiece of culinary art. To Lily, with her hunger-heightened sense of smell and her mother's deadly important lesson, it looked like danger. The cake reeked of bitter almonds, the poison her mother had warned her about. And it was headed for the dining room, where dozens of unsuspecting guests, including a little girl in a wheelchair she glimpsed through the doorway, were about to be served. The grand ballroom of Evergreen Estate hummed with the polite conversation of Boston's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables adorned with fresh orchids and hand-calligraphed place cards. A string quartet played Vivaldi in the corner, providing the perfect soundtrack for charitable giving. Harrison Wells moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands and accepting congratulations on both his pharmaceutical breakthroughs and his impeccable event. At his side, Olivia sat in her wheelchair, her posture perfect, her unseeing eyes bright with excitement at the music and voices surrounding her. "Harrison, the research footage was compelling," said Edward Blackwood, CEO of Nexus Pharmaceuticals, swirling his glass of 30-year-old scotch. "Phase 3 trials showing that level of improvement in visual acuity. Impressive." "Thank you, Edward," Harrison replied, his hand resting protectively on Olivia's shoulder. "Though we're still years from market approval, unless someone pulls the right strings at the FDA," Congressman James Richardson interjected, joining their circle with his wife, Patricia. "The right committee endorsement could fast-track the process." Harrison offered a diplomatic smile. "We're committed to following proper protocols, Congressman. Shortcuts lead to setbacks." "Noble sentiment," Richardson said with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Patricia, why don't you take little Olivia to meet Senator Mitchell's wife?" I believe they were admiring the dessert cart. As Patricia Richardson led Olivia away, Harrison noticed something odd in the congressman's demeanor, a nervous energy, his eyes darting to the ornate grandfather clock every few seconds. "If you'll excuse me, gentlemen," Harrison said suddenly, uneasy. "I should check on the presentation schedule." Across the room, Olivia was being fawned over by a cluster of society women, their exclamations of sympathy just a touch too enthusiastic to be genuine. Chef Marcus was presenting the dessert options with theatrical flair, describing each creation as if unveiling priceless art. "And the pièce de résistance," the chef announced. "A 5-tier almond genoise with white chocolate, buttercream, dedicated to our guest of honor, Miss Olivia Wells." The elaborate cake was wheeled forward on a silver cart, its pristine white frosting decorated with cascading sugar flowers. Several guests applauded the presentation. Meanwhile, in the adjacent hallway, Lily Morgan was frozen in panic. She had managed to sneak out of the kitchen by ducking behind a server, but now found herself trapped between two security guards discussing shift changes near the main entrance. The bitter almond smell from the cake had grown stronger, confirming her suspicions. She needed to warn someone, everyone, before it was too late. Through a partially open door, she could see the glittering ballroom and the cake being positioned for presentation. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "That smell means danger, Lily, real danger." With no time to think of a better plan, Lily did the only thing she could. She ran. Bursting through the doorway, she sprinted across the polished marble floor, her worn sneakers squeaking as she dodged between startled guests in designer attire. Security immediately moved to intercept her, but Lily was faster, propelled by desperate urgency. "Don't eat the cake!" she screamed, her voice piercing the refined atmosphere like a siren. "Please, don't eat the cake!" The room froze in collective shock. Harrison Wells turned to see a small, disheveled girl with wild eyes and tangled hair racing toward the dessert cart where his daughter sat. "Stop her!" someone shouted, and two security guards lunged forward, catching Lily by the arms just as she reached the central table. "The cake!" Lily struggled against their grip, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face. "It's poisoned, I can smell it. Bitter almonds, my mom taught me, it's poison." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some guests laughed nervously, while others backed away from the dessert cart. Harrison strode forward, his expression a mixture of concern and annoyance at the disruption. "Young lady, how did you get in here?" he demanded, gesturing for security to maintain their hold on her. "Please, you have to believe me," Lily begged, her voice breaking. "The cake smells like bitter almonds. My mom was a baker. She taught me that smell means poison, cyanide. Please don't let anyone eat it, especially not her." She nodded toward Olivia, who had turned her head toward the commotion, her expression curious. Harrison studied the girl's face. Despite her filthy appearance and wild intrusion, there was something in her desperate sincerity that gave him pause. He glanced at the cake, then back at the child. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone softening slightly. "Lily," she whispered, suddenly aware of all the staring eyes. "Lily Morgan." "Well, Lily Morgan, that's a very serious accusation," Harrison said carefully. "Why would you think the cake is poisoned?" "I can smell it," Lily insisted. "My mum worked at Bellini's bakery before she got sick. She taught me about ingredients. Bitter almonds smell different from regular almonds. They contain cyanide." At the mention of cyanide, several guests gasped and moved further from the dessert cart. Chef Marcus stepped forward, his face flushed with indignation. "This is preposterous. I've been preparing fine cuisine for 30 years, every ingredient. In that cake is premium quality, sourced from—" "Test it," Harrison interrupted, surprising everyone, including himself. Something in the girl's certainty had triggered his instincts, the same instincts that had built his pharmaceutical empire from nothing. "Mr. Wells, surely you don't believe this." "This urchin," Patricia Richardson said with a nervous laugh, her hand clutching her pearl necklace. Harrison ignored her, turning to his head of security. "Johnson, call Dr. Patel from the lab. Have him bring portable testing equipment." The security chief hesitated only briefly before nodding and stepping away to make the call. The room erupted in whispers, as guests processed this unexpected development. Congressman Richardson pushed through the crowd, his face oddly pale. "This is absurd, Wells. You're disrupting a charity event over the ravings of a street child who probably snuck in looking for handouts." "Perhaps," Harrison replied coolly, "but I'd rather be absurd than careless when it comes to matters of safety, especially with my daughter present." As if on cue, Olivia spoke up from her wheelchair. "Is something wrong with the cake, Daddy? It smells nice to me." "We're just being careful, Butterfly," Harrison assured her, then turned back to Lily, who was still being held firmly by security. "How did you get in here, Lily?" The girl's shoulders slumped. "Through the wine cellar window. I'm sorry, I was hungry, and I saw in the newspaper about your party. I thought maybe I could find food for me and Grandma Rose." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "She's been sick and we don't have much." Something in her story struck Harrison deeply. The desperation, the responsibility she felt at such a young age. Before he could respond, Dr. Patel arrived, carrying a metal case of equipment. As the company's head research scientist, he had been a guest at the luncheon, fortunately within quick reach. "What seems to be the problem, Mr. Wells?" Dr. Patel asked, looking curiously at the detained child. "I need you to test this cake for the presence of cyanide," Harrison said quietly, causing another ripple of gasps through the crowd. Dr. Patel's eyebrows shot up, but he nodded professionally and opened his case. "I'll need a sample." Chef Marcus, now visibly nervous, protested again. "This is insulting, Mr. Wells. I've served heads of state." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Harrison replied firmly. "Cut a sample from the center, please." As the chef reluctantly complied, Harrison noticed Congressman Richardson checking his watch and edging toward the exit. Curious, he signaled to another security guard to discreetly block the congressman's path. Dr. Patel worked quickly, utilizing a portable chemical analyzer from his lab. The guests watched in tense silence as he processed the cake sample, applying reagents and studying the results. After several minutes that felt like hours, his expression changed from professional detachment to alarm. "Mr. Wells," he said, his voice controlled but urgent, "this cake contains a lethal concentration of cyanide. Enough to—" He glanced at the children present and amended his wording. "Enough to cause grave harm to anyone who consumed even a small piece." The room erupted in chaos. Women screamed, guests backed toward the exits, and security scrambled to maintain order. Harrison immediately went to Olivia, placing himself protectively between her and the poisoned dessert. "Seal all exits," he ordered Johnson. "No one leaves until the police arrive." Through the commotion, Harrison's eyes found Lily, who had been released by the stunned security guards. She stood alone in the center of the pandemonium, small and frightened, yet somehow resolute. Their eyes met across the room, the billionaire pharmaceutical magnate and the hungry child from the projects, connected by a moment of truth that had altered the course of dozens of lives. "Daddy?" Olivia's voice was small and confused. "What's happening?" Harrison knelt beside his daughter's wheelchair, taking her hands in his. "Someone tried to do something very bad, Butterfly, but a brave little girl stopped them. She saved us all." "The girl who was shouting?" Olivia asked. Her head tilted as she processed this information. "The one who smelled the poison?" "Yes," Harrison confirmed, looking again at Lily, who was now being offered a chair and a glass of water by Eleanor. "Her name is Lily, and she has a very special gift. She knew something was wrong when no one else did." "Like a superhero," Olivia said with childlike certainty. Harrison watched as police officers began arriving, securing the scene and separating guests for questioning. Across the room, Congressman Richardson was being quietly detained by security after attempting to slip out a service entrance. "Yes, Butterfly," Harrison agreed, the pieces beginning to fall into place in his mind. "Exactly like a superhero." The library of Evergreen Estate had been transformed into an impromptu command center. Detective Sophia Martinez of the Boston Police Department's Major Crimes Division sat across from Harrison Wells, her notebook open on the antique mahogany desk between them. The charity luncheon guests had been questioned and released, though Several key individuals remained on the premises. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Detective Martinez said, her sharp eyes studying Harrison. "A homeless child broke into your mansion during a high-profile charity event, claimed the ceremonial cake was poisoned, and was proven correct by your company's scientist." Harrison nodded, running a hand through his usually immaculate hair. "It sounds implausible, I know." "Implausible doesn't begin to cover it, Mr. Wells," Martinez replied. "We've confirmed Dr. Patel's findings. The cake contained enough cyanide to incapacitate everyone who ate it. We're talking about a deliberate mass poisoning attempt at a gathering of Boston's most influential citizens." Through the library's open door, Harrison could see Lily Morgan sitting in the adjacent drawing room. Eleanor had given her a change of clothes, likely borrowed from Olivia's closet, and a plate of sandwiches that the girl was devouring with heartbreaking enthusiasm. Social services had been contacted, but Harrison had insisted Lily remain at the estate until the investigation was complete. "What about Congressman Richardson?" Harrison asked, turning back to the detective. "Being processed downtown," Martinez confirmed. "His initial statement was all denials, but we found something interesting." She slid a photograph across the desk, a cell phone screen showing a text message. "Job confirmed. Payment as discussed upon completion." Harrison studied the image. "This doesn't prove anything conclusive." "No, but this might." Martinez produced another photo, this one showing a bank statement with a large wire transfer. "This payment went from an offshore account to your head pastry chef, Marcus Delaney, 3 days ago. Mr. Delaney is also being questioned." Harrison felt the blood drain from his face. "Marcus has worked for me for 5 years. I can't believe he would—" "Money is a powerful motivator," Martinez interrupted. "But we suspect there's more to the story. Chef Delaney's family has mysteriously disappeared. His wife didn't show up for her nursing shift at Boston General yesterday, and his teenage children haven't been seen since they left for school 2 days ago." "Do you think they've been taken to coerce him?" Harrison's mind raced through the implications. "It's a theory we're pursuing," Martinez confirmed. "Richardson has powerful connections, including some with questionable ethics. We're working with the FBI now, given the profile of this case." The detective's phone buzzed. She checked it, her expression hardening. "Excuse me, I need to take this." She stepped into the hallway, leaving Harrison alone with his thoughts. His gaze drifted again to Lily, who had finished her sandwiches and was now cautiously exploring a bookshelf, her small fingers tracing the spines of leather-bound classics with wonder. Something about her courage, her quick thinking, reminded him of Catherine. Martinez returned, her face grave. "We've just received some troubling information. Richardson's personal assistant has come forward with evidence, suggesting this wasn't just about you, Mr. Wells." "What do you mean?" "The congressman appears to have orchestrated this as a multi-target attack. Several of your guests were specifically placed near the dessert table: Senator Mitchell, Judge Kavanaugh, Edward Blackwood, all people who had recently opposed Richardson's legislative agenda or investigated his campaign finances." Harrison felt a chill run down his spine. "And my daughter? Olivia was seated at that table." Martinez's expression softened slightly. "From what we've gathered, your daughter was collateral damage. Richardson apparently told associates that harming her would destroy you completely, making your testimony in the upcoming ethics hearing irrelevant." White-hot anger surged through Harrison. 6 months ago, he had witnessed Richardson accepting a bribe from a foreign pharmaceutical representative seeking to circumvent FDA protocols. His testimony was scheduled before a congressional ethics committee next month. "Where is Olivia now?" he asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. "With your security team and one of my officers in her bedroom. She's safe," Martinez assured him. Harrison nodded, momentarily relieved. He stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the garden, where just hours ago guests had mingled with champagne flutes, blissfully unaware of the danger that awaited them. "What happens to Lily?" he asked suddenly, turning back to the detective. Martinez sighed. "Child Protective Services is sending someone. Her grandmother has been located, Rose Morgan, 67, recently hospitalized with complications from pneumonia. She's in no condition to care for a child right now. So foster care. Harrison said flatly. Most likely, yes, Martinez confirmed, at least temporarily. Harrison was silent for a long moment. Then, with sudden resolution, he said, I want to speak with CPS when they arrive. Before Martinez could respond, a commotion from the foyer interrupted them. Johnson, Harrison's head of security, appeared at the library door. Sir, the FBI is here, and Chef Delaney's family has been found. Are they all right? Harrison asked urgently. Johnson nodded, shaken but unharmed. They were being held at a vacant property in Revere Beach. The FBI raided it based on cell phone location data from Richardson's associates. Relief washed over Harrison. Within the horror of the day, this at least was good news. The next few hours passed in a blur of federal agents, forensic teams, and legal discussions. Harrison provided his full cooperation, opening his home and records to the investigation. Throughout it all, he kept checking on both Olivia and Lily, the child who had lost everything and the child who had nearly lost her life. As evening fell, the chaos finally began to subside. Most of the investigators had departed, leaving only a security detail and Detective Martinez, who was finishing her report in the library. Harrison found Lily in the kitchen, where the housekeeper had set her up with hot chocolate and cookies. The girl looked up as he entered, her expression wary but less frightened than before. Hi, Harrison said, sitting across from her at the kitchen island. How are you feeling? Lily shrugged, dunking a cookie into her hot chocolate. Okay, I guess, is my grandma all right? She's being well taken care of at the hospital, Harrison assured her. I've arranged for her to have a private room and the best doctors. Lily's eyes widened. Really, but why would you do that? Because you saved my daughter's life today, Harrison said simply. You saved many lives. Lily looked down at her mug. I didn't mean to cause so much trouble. I remembered what my mom taught me about bitter almonds. Your mother taught you well, Harrison said gently. Can you tell me more about her? A small smile touched Lily's lips. She was the best baker at Bellini's. She could tell exactly when. Bread was done just by the smell. She taught me all about different ingredients. Her smile faltered. She got really sick last year. The doctors tried to help, but... I'm very sorry, Harrison said, recognizing the grief that mirrored his own. It sounds like she was an extraordinary woman. Lily nodded, blinking back tears. Grandma Rose tried really hard after Mum was gone, but it's been tough. She keeps getting sick, and her medicine costs a lot. Harrison felt a familiar pang of frustration at the healthcare system his own company was part of. A system where life-saving medications were often priced beyond reach for people like Rose Morgan. The social worker is coming tomorrow, Lily said quietly, changing the subject. Am I going to foster care? Before Harrison could respond, Olivia's voice came from the doorway. Daddy, is that the girl who saved us? Elena wheeled Olivia into the kitchen, the child's face animated with curiosity. Harrison had explained the day's events to his daughter in simplified terms, emphasizing Lily's bravery rather than the danger they had faced. Yes, Butterfly, this is Lily Morgan, Harrison said, watching as the two girls became aware of each other. Hello, Olivia said, turning her head in the direction of Lily's breathing. I'm Olivia. Thank you for saving my daddy and me. Lily slid off her stool and approached cautiously. Hi, you're welcome. I like your hair. It's really pretty. Olivia beamed at the compliment. I can't see you, but you sound nice. How did... You know the cake was bad. I could smell it, Lily explained, standing now beside Olivia's wheelchair. My mom taught me that bitter almonds smell different from regular almonds. You must have a super nose, Olivia said with admiration. I have super ears. Daddy says I can hear things other people can't. Harrison watched in amazement as the two girls began chatting, their connection immediate and natural despite their vastly different backgrounds. Olivia, who was often shy around strangers, was animated and engaged. Lily, who had every reason to be distrustful of adults and their world, was gentle and patient with the younger child. Detective Martinez appeared. In the doorway, observing the scene with a small smile, she gestured for Harrison to join her in the hallway. We've completed our initial investigation, she informed him in a low voice. Richardson isn't talking, but his aide is cooperating fully in exchange for immunity. This conspiracy goes deeper than we initially thought, possibly involving foreign interests trying to disrupt American pharmaceutical research. Harrison nodded grimly. My testimony next month could expose corruption at the highest levels, Martinez confirmed. Your security team should be enhanced until the hearing. We'll have undercover officers assigned as well. Harrison glanced back at the kitchen, where Lily was now describing colors to Olivia, who was touching the other girl's face to see her features. What about Lily? Martinez consulted her notes. CPS is overwhelmed as usual. They've located a temporary foster placement, but it's in Worcester, quite far from her grandmother's hospital. Harrison made a decision then, one that had been forming in his mind since the moment Lily had burst into his carefully controlled world and shattered its complacency. I'm going to apply for emergency fostering certification, he said firmly, for both Lily and her grandmother once she's released from the hospital. Martinez's eyebrows rose in surprise. That's unexpected, Mr. Wells. Is it? Harrison gestured toward the kitchen. That child saved my daughter's life today. She risked everything, ran past armed security, faced ridicule and disbelief, because she knew something was wrong and had the courage to act. I can provide safety, stability, and ensure she stays connected to her grandmother. The detective studied him for a long moment. I'll speak with CPS. Your resources and influence will help, but they'll still need to conduct home studies, background checks. I understand, Harrison interrupted. I'll have my legal team begin the process immediately. As Martinez departed, with promises to return the following day, Harrison stood in the doorway watching Lily and Olivia. The girls had moved to the kitchen table, where Eleanor had provided paper and colored pencils. Lily was guiding Olivia's hand to help her draw, describing each color and shape with patient detail. For the first time since Catherine's passing, Harrison felt something shift within him, a tight knot of grief and isolation beginning to loosen. In the most unexpected way, through the most harrowing circumstances, a new possibility had emerged. Not a replacement for what was lost, but something different, something hopeful. Autumn leaves swirled across the grounds of Evergreen Estate as September gave way to October. 3 months had passed since the day of the charity luncheon, 3 months of legal proceedings, media frenzy, and life-altering changes for everyone involved. Harrison stood at his office window, watching Lily push Olivia's wheelchair along the garden path. The girl's laughter floated up to him, a sound that had become wonderfully common in the once somber mansion. Despite their different backgrounds and challenges, they had formed a bond that defied explanation, as if they'd been waiting their whole short lives to find each other. Mr. Wells? His assistant's voice interrupted his thoughts. Judge Winters is on line 1 regarding the guardianship hearing tomorrow. Harrison returned to his desk and picked up the phone. Thank you for calling, Your Honor. Mr. Wells, the judge's voice, was cordial but professional. I've reviewed your petition for permanent guardianship of Lily Morgan. The temporary arrangement seems to have worked exceptionally well. It has, Harrison confirmed, glancing at the framed photograph that now sat prominently on his desk. Lily and Olivia at Boston Children's Museum, their faces bright with excitement. Lily has thrived here, and her grandmother's health has improved dramatically since moving into our guest house. Yes, Ms. Morgan's statement was quite compelling, Judge Winters acknowledged. Still, this is an unusual situation. From homeless child to ward of one of Boston's wealthiest citizens, the court must ensure this arrangement truly serves Lily's best interests, not just a billionaire's sense of obligation or gratitude. Harrison had anticipated this concern. I understand, Your Honor. That's why I've requested the guardianship rather than immediate adoption. It gives everyone time to adjust and ensure this is the right permanent solution for Lily. There was a pause on the line. The caseworker's reports are excellent. Lily's academic testing shows she's catching up quickly with proper schooling, and her emotional well-being scores are remarkable given the trauma she's experienced. Another pause. What about the criminal case? Richardson's trial is scheduled for next month, correct? Yes, Harrison confirmed, his jaw tightening at the mention of the congressman. The The prosecution has asked that both Lily and I testify. A child her age in a high-profile federal case. Judge Winters sighed. Well, at least she has stable support now. I'll see you in my chambers tomorrow at 9. After concluding the call, Harrison descended the grand staircase to find Elena supervising the delivery of a hospital bed to the guest house. Rose Morgan had been released from the hospital 2 months ago, her condition much improved, but still requiring ongoing care. The guest house had been retrofitted with medical equipment and accessibility features, allowing her to maintain independence while receiving the treatment she needed. "Mr. Wells," Elena greeted him. "The respiratory therapist called. She'll be here at 3 instead of 2. Harrison nodded his thanks. The household staff had adjusted admirably to the changes, the addition of Rose, Lily's presence, and the increased medical personnel coming and going. Eleanor, in particular, had become a surrogate grandmother to both girls, her natural warmth extending easily to include Lily in her circle of care. Outside, Harrison found the girls near the koi pond, where Lily was describing the fish to Olivia. "The orange one with black spots just swam under the bridge," Lily narrated. "And now the big white one is coming to see if we have food." Olivia's face was tilted toward the water, her expression rapt as she visualized the scene through Lily's words. "Does the white one still have the funny tail that looks like a wedding dress?" "Yep, that's her," Lily confirmed. "I named her Bride Fish, remember?" Harrison approached, deliberately stepping on a twig to announce his presence. Both girls turned toward the sound. "Daddy," Olivia called out, "Lily's teaching me about the fish again." "I heard," Harrison said, joining them at the pond's edge. "How's school today, Lily? Did you get your math test back?" Lily's face lit up as she dug through her backpack. "I got an A. Ms. Peterson said my work was exceptional." She proudly displayed the test paper, covered in gold stars. Harrison examined the paper with genuine pride. When Lily had first arrived, educational assessments had revealed she was nearly 2 grade levels behind, despite her natural intelligence. Years of spotty attendance due to her grandmother's illness and their unstable housing situation had created significant gaps in her learning. Now, with 3 months of private tutoring and unwavering support, she was rapidly catching up to her peers. "This is outstanding work," Harrison said, noting the complex fractions she had mastered. "We should celebrate. How about pizza night?" Both girls cheered at this suggestion. Friday pizza night had become a cherished tradition, one of many new rituals that had transformed the formal household into a home. "Can Grandma Rose have pizza too?" Lily asked. "The doctor said she's allowed to have treat food once a week. Now, if she feels up to joining us, absolutely," Harrison agreed. As they made their way back to the main house, Harrison's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Martinez. "New evidence discovered. Need to speak with you privately. Coming by at 5. Harrison frowned at the message. The case against Congressman Richardson had seemed airtight. Electronic records of the transactions, testimony from Chef Delaney, who had been granted immunity, in exchange for his cooperation, and damning evidence from Richardson's own aide. What new development could there be? Later that evening, after pizza had been devoured and the girls were engrossed in a movie with Elena, Harrison met Detective Martinez in his study. "Thank you for coming," he said, offering her a seat. "Your message sounded urgent." Martinez placed a file on the desk between them. The FBI uncovered additional communications. Richardson wasn't working alone. He had a partner, someone who specifically targeted you and Olivia. Harrison felt his stomach tighten. "Who?" Martinez slid a photograph across the desk. Harrison stared at it in disbelief. "Edward Blackwood? But he's been my colleague for years. Competitor, yes, but..." Harrison struggled to process this betrayal. "Colleague, competitor, and apparently the man who's been systematically sabotaging your FDA applications for the past 3 years," Martinez said grimly. "The FBI found evidence that Blackwood has been bribing FDA officials to delay your approvals while fast-tracking his own company's similar treatments." Harrison recalled Blackwood's words at the luncheon, his seemingly supportive comments about the research. But why resort to this? He couldn't bring himself to name what had nearly happened to his daughter. Your breakthrough treatment for congenital blindness, Martinez explained. According to recovered emails, your research was years ahead of Nexus Pharmaceuticals. If approved, it would corner the market and expose Blackwood's inferior product as essentially worthless. When conventional corporate espionage failed, he apparently decided more drastic measures were necessary. Harrison ran a hand over his face, processing the magnitude of this betrayal. Does he know you've discovered this connection? Not yet. The FBI is building their case carefully. They'll arrest him tomorrow morning. Martinez's expression softened slightly. I wanted to warn you personally. This may affect your testimony and potentially expose Lily to additional questioning. Harrison's protective instincts flared immediately. I don't want her anywhere near this. She's been through enough. The prosecutor agrees, Martinez assured. They believe they can make their case without putting her on the stand, but they'll need your extended testimony. After the detective left, Harrison remained in his study, the weight of this new revelation heavy on his shoulders. The lengths to which Blackwood had gone, conspiring to harm a child, his own goddaughter no less, Blackwood had been Catherine's close friend, seemed incomprehensible. Soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Rose Morgan stood in the doorway leaning on her walker. At 67, Rose had the weathered dignity of someone who had faced life's harshest challenges without surrendering her humanity. 3 months of proper nutrition, medication, and rest had worked wonders, returning color to her cheeks and strength to her once frail frame. Elena said you had a police visitor, Rose said, her shrewd eyes taking in his troubled expression. Bad news about the case? Harrison had learned that Rose's perceptiveness matched her granddaughter's. He gestured for her to sit and briefly explained the new development, omitting the most disturbing details. Rose listened carefully, her hands folded in her lap. That poor child has seen too much ugliness in this world, she said when he finished. But she's also seen remarkable kindness, thanks to you. I've done what anyone would do, Harrison demurred. Rose gave him a knowing look. No, you haven't. Most people might have rewarded her, maybe set up a college fund, gotten some good publicity, and moved on. You opened your home and your heart. She leaned forward slightly. I've lived long enough to recognize when the universe is putting broken pieces together to make something new and beautiful. Harrison smiled at her poetic assessment. The guardianship hearing is tomorrow. Are you still comfortable with my petition? More than comfortable, Rose assured him. I'll always be Lily's grandmother, but she needs stability, opportunities, and a family that can provide what I couldn't. She's blossomed here. Her eyes grew misty. My daughter would be at peace knowing Lily is loved and cared for. The mention of Lily's mother reminded Harrison of something he'd been meaning to discuss with Rose. I've been thinking about establishing a foundation in your daughter's name, the Sarah Morgan Foundation for Culinary Arts, a scholarship program for underprivileged youth interested in baking and food science. Rose's hand flew to her mouth. You would do that? Sarah's knowledge passed to Lily saved countless lives, Harrison said simply. Her legacy deserves to be honored. The next morning, Harrison, Rose, Lily, and their legal team gathered in Judge Winter's chambers. The proceedings were mercifully straightforward, with the judge reviewing the caseworker's reports, Lily's academic progress, and Rose's statement of support. Lily, Judge Winters addressed the girl directly, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Is that okay? Lily nodded, her small hand gripping Harrison's tightly. How do you feel about living with Mr. Wells and Olivia? The judge asked gently. Lily's response was immediate and certain. It's the best thing ever. Olivia is my best friend, and Mr. Wells helps me with homework and never gets mad when I ask questions. And he made sure Grandma Rose got better. Do you miss your old home at all? The judge inquired. Lily considered this thoughtfully. I miss some things, like the lady next door who had cats and the ice cream truck that came on Thursdays, but I was hungry a lot there, and Grandma was always worried. I'm not hungry here, and I can visit Grandma any time because she lives in the little house now. Judge Winters nodded, seeming satisfied with these honest answers. After a few more questions and a review of the final paperwork, he made his ruling. I hereby grant Harrison Wells guardianship of Lily Morgan with continued visitation and relationship with her grandmother Rose Morgan. This arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months, with the potential for adoption proceedings should all parties remain in agreement. As they left the courthouse, Harrison felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The legal recognition of what his heart had already decided brought a sense of completion. One chapter ending, another beginning. That evening, the household celebrated with a special dinner. Chef Wilson, Marcus Delaney's replacement, had prepared Lily's favorites: fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, and apple pie for dessert. Rose joined them at the main house, her strength allowing her to participate more fully in family activities. As Harrison looked around the table, at Olivia's beaming face, at Lily's animated storytelling, at Rose's contented smile, at Elena's maternal presence, he realized that his home had been transformed. The mausoleum-like quality it had possessed after Catherine's passing had been replaced by warmth, laughter, and possibility. Later, as he tucked Olivia into bed, his daughter asked a question that caught him off guard. "Daddy, is Lily my sister now?" Harrison considered how to answer. "Well, Butterfly, legally she's in our care, but because I want her to be my sister forever," Olivia interrupted with childlike directness. "She makes the best stories, and she doesn't treat me different because I can't see, and she taught me how to tell when milk is going bad by smelling it." Harrison smiled at this practical skill Lily had imparted. "Would you like her to be your sister officially someday?" Olivia nodded emphatically. "Yes, please. Can we ask her tomorrow?" "Let's give it a little more time," Harrison suggested gently, "but I think she feels the same way you do." As he turned out Olivia's light and moved to check on Lily in her adjacent room, Harrison reflected on how quickly children adapted, how readily they formed new bonds when given the chance. The adults in this equation, himself included, had more complicated emotions to navigate. He found Lily still awake, reading a book about marine biology, her newest passion after a weekend trip to the New England Aquarium. "All set for E. The night?" he asked from her doorway. Lily nodded, placing a bookmark to save her place. "Is it really official now I get to stay?" "It's really official," Harrison confirmed, sitting on the edge of her bed. "How do you feel about that?" Lily was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful beyond her years. "Happy, but also a little sad sometimes because of missing my mom. Is that okay?" "That's more than okay," Harrison assured her. "It's exactly right. We can be happy about our family now and still miss the people we've lost." Lily seemed relieved by this permission to hold contradictory emotions. "Mr. Wells?" "Yes, Lily?" "Olivia told me that you're going to London to see doctors about her eyes. Is that true?" Harrison nodded. "There's a surgeon there who's pioneering a new procedure that might help her see shapes and colors. It's not a guaranteed fix, but it's promising." "Will I come too?" The question held a note of anxiety. "Of course," Harrison said without hesitation. "We all will. You, me, Olivia, Grandma Rose, and Elena. We're a family now. We stick together." Lily's smile illuminated her entire face. She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Harrison's neck, the first time she had initiated such contact. "Thank you for saving us," she whispered. Harrison held her gently, recognizing the profound truth in her words. In trying to save this child and her grandmother, he had inadvertently saved himself and Olivia from a half-life of isolated grief. Some might call it fate or divine intervention. Rose would call it the universe putting broken pieces together. Harrison simply called it family. London greeted them with persistent drizzle and grey skies, a fitting backdrop for the mixture of hope and anxiety that had accompanied them across the Atlantic. Harrison had secured a townhouse in Kensington, close to the Royal London Hospital for Children, where Dr. Nathaniel Sharma, the pioneering neuro-ophthalmologist, had agreed to evaluate Olivia for his experimental procedure. "It's like living inside a cloud," Lily observed as she pressed her face against the townhouse window, watching pedestrians hurry past with umbrellas and raincoats. 1 year had passed since the day she had burst into Harrison's life, warning about poisoned cake. In that time she had grown taller, her once hollow cheeks now full and healthy, her eyes bright with curiosity and intelligence. "England is famous for its rain," Rose commented from her armchair where she was knitting, a hobby she had taken up during her recovery. At 68, she moved more slowly than before her illness, but regular medical care and proper nutrition had worked wonders. The pneumonia that had nearly claimed her life was a distant memory, though she still required medication for her heart condition. Olivia sat on the window seat beside Lily, her fingers tracing the condensation on the glass. "What color is the rain?" she asked, a question that had become familiar to the household. Since birth, she had created her own understanding of color through touch, smell, and description. "It's not really a color itself," Lily explained patiently, "but it makes everything look silver and dark blue today. The street is shiny black, and people's umbrellas are like moving circles of different colors against the gray." Harrison watched this exchange from the doorway, marveling as he often did at Lily's intuitive ability to translate the visual world for Olivia. The girls, now 5 and 6, had developed a communication system all their own, Lily acting as Olivia's eyes, Olivia teaching Lily to recognize sounds and textures with heightened awareness. Elena entered the room carrying a tray of hot chocolate. "Dr. Sharma's office called. Your appointment is confirmed for 9 tomorrow morning." Harrison nodded his thanks. The journey to this moment had been arduous. After learning about Dr. Sharma's breakthrough procedure 6 months ago, he had immersed himself in research, consulting with specialists worldwide. The surgery, an intricate combination of stem cell therapy and optic nerve stimulation, had been performed on only 12 patients so far. Of those, 5 had experienced significant improvement in visual perception, 4 had minor improvements, and 3 had no change. None had suffered adverse effects, which was the most important consideration for Harrison. "I think we should all get an early night," he suggested, checking his watch. "Tomorrow's a big day." Later, after the girls had been tucked in and Rose had retired to her room, Harrison found himself alone with Eleanor in the townhouse kitchen. She was preparing Olivia's medical information for the morning appointment, organizing the extensive files with practiced efficiency. "Are you certain about this, Mr. Wells?" Elena asked quietly, looking up from her task. Having been with the family for years, she had earned the right to such direct questions. "The procedure has such a low success rate," Harrison sighed, pouring himself a small measure of scotch. 15% isn't nothing, and even success just means partial. Vision restoration, shapes, movements, some colors, not normal sight. But the risks are minimal according to every specialist I've consulted," Harrison finished. "No adverse reactions in any of the trial patients. The worst-case scenario is that it simply doesn't work." Elena nodded, though concern still lined her face. "And you've explained this to Olivia, that she might be disappointed, as well as one can explain complex medical probabilities to a 5-year-old, Harrison said with a rueful smile. "She understands it might not work, but she's excited about even the possibility of seeing colors." The truth was more complicated. Harrison had been careful not to inflate Olivia's expectations, but he'd seen the hope blooming in her. The way she asked more questions about what things looked like, how she practiced identifying objects by their blurry outlines in the special preparation exercises Dr. Sharma had sent. Hope was a powerful force, and its potential disappointment a heavy burden for a child to bear. "What does Lily think about all this?" Elena asked, changing the subject slightly. Harrison smiled. The bond between the girls had deepened over the past year, evolving from friendship into something closer to sisterhood. She's been Olivia's biggest supporter, spends hours describing what everything looks like, just in case Olivia can see after the surgery. "That child has an old soul," Eleanor observed. "Sometimes I forget she's only 6. The next morning dawned, with surprisingly clear skies, as the family made their way to the Royal London Hospital for Children. The modern facility stood in stark contrast to the historic buildings surrounding it, a glass and steel monument to medical innovation. Dr. Sharma greeted them in a consultation room decorated with colorful artwork created by former patients. In his early 50s, With salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind rimless glasses, he had the calm demeanor of someone who had dedicated his life to healing. "It's a pleasure to meet you all in person," he said, shaking Harrison's hand before kneeling to Olivia's level. "And you must be my brave patient, Olivia." "Yes, sir," Olivia replied, her voice small but determined. "Are you going to help me see?" Dr. Sharma chose his words carefully. "I'm going to try my very best. But first, we need to do some special tests to make sure you're a good candidate for my new procedure. Is that okay?" Olivia nodded solemnly. Lily, standing beside her wheelchair, gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. The morning was filled with comprehensive examinations, advanced imaging of Olivia's optic nerves and visual, cortex, genetic testing, and various stimulation response measurements. Through it all, Lily remained by Olivia's side, describing the equipment and distracting her with stories when procedures became uncomfortable. By afternoon, the family gathered again in Dr. Sharma's office to hear his assessment. "Olivia's condition is actually ideal for this procedure," he explained, displaying detailed scans on his computer. "The primary issue is in the signaling pathway between her retina and optic nerve, not in the retina itself. The stem cell implantation, combined with our proprietary stimulation protocol, has the potential to establish new neural connections." "What exactly might she be able to see if successful?" Harrison asked, the question that had been foremost in his mind. Dr. Sharma leaned back in his chair. "In our most successful cases, patients develop the ability to distinguish light levels, recognize shapes and movement, and perceive some colors, primarily high-contrast combinations. Faces remain difficult to distinguish in detail, but their outlines and expressions become visible. It's not typical vision, but it's a significant improvement from complete blindness." "And recovery time?" Rose asked from her seat beside Olivia. "The initial healing takes about 3 weeks," Dr. Sharma explained. "During this time, Olivia will need to wear special protective bandages and avoid any strain. We'll begin stimulus testing at the 3-week mark, though neural pathways continue to develop for up to a year post-procedure." Harrison glanced at Olivia, who was listening intently, her small face serious. "Butterfly, do you have any questions for Dr. Sharma?" Olivia was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Will it hurt?" Dr. Sharma answered honestly, "You'll be asleep during the surgery, so you won't feel anything then. Afterward, your eyes might feel uncomfortable, itchy, or like there's something in them, but we have good medicine to help with that." Olivia nodded, processing this information. Then she asked a question that caught everyone by surprise. "If it works, will the first thing I see be Lily?" "I want her to be the first thing I see." The room fell silent. Harrison felt his throat tighten with emotion. Dr. Sharma smiled gently. "We can certainly arrange that, if the procedure is successful. Is Lily your sister?" "She's my best friend," Olivia explained. "She tells me what everything looks like, and she saved me from the bad cake. Now she lives with us, and we're going to be real sisters soon." Lily blushed at this characterization, but didn't contradict it. "Well then," Dr. Sharma said, "we'll make sure Lily is the first person you see if your eyes start working. But remember, it might take time and it might not be very clear at first." After further discussion of risks, benefits, and logistics, Harrison signed the consent forms. The surgery was scheduled for 3 days later, giving them time for final preparations and preoperative testing. The intervening days passed in a blur of hospital visits and quiet moments at the townhouse. Harrison arranged virtual school sessions for Lily so she wouldn't fall behind, though her thoughts were clearly preoccupied with Olivia's upcoming surgery. The night before the procedure, Harrison found Lily in the townhouse library, surrounded by art books. "What are you researching so intently?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Colors," Lily replied without looking up. "I want to make sure I can explain them right if Olivia can see them." She pointed to a reproduction of a Monet painting. "Like this blue, it's not just blue. It's like the sky when it's really clear and deep, but also a little bit purple." Harrison felt a surge of affection for this thoughtful child who had transformed their lives. "You're an extraordinary person, Lily Morgan." She looked up at him then, her expression serious. What if it doesn't work? Olivia will be so sad. Then, we'll help her through that sadness, Harrison said simply. Just like we've helped each other through sad times before. That's what families do. Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. Mr. Wells, can I ask you something important? Of course. Olivia keeps saying we're going to be real sisters soon. Is that true? Are you going to adopt me? The directness of the question momentarily stunned Harrison. He and Rose had discussed this possibility, planning to revisit the adoption conversation after Olivia's surgery and recovery. But children, as always, had their own timeline. Would you like that? He asked carefully. To be adopted and become Olivia's legal sister? Lily nodded, her eyes bright, more than anything. But she hesitated. I don't want to stop being a Morgan. My mom was a Morgan. You could be Lily Morgan Wells, Harrison suggested. That way you keep your mom's name and add ours. Lily's face lit up. That sounds perfect. Can we tell Olivia tomorrow before her surgery? It might help her be brave. I think that's a wonderful idea, Harrison agreed. The morning of the surgery arrived with tense anticipation. Olivia was quiet during the drive to the hospital, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, a gift from Lily on her 5th birthday. As the nurses prepared Olivia for surgery, Harrison pulled Lily aside in the waiting area. Should we tell her now, he asked, about the adoption plans? Lily nodded decisively. They returned to the pre-op room where Olivia lay in a hospital gown, her auburn curls tucked under a surgical cap. Butterfly, Harrison said, taking her small hand. Lily and I have something important to tell you before your surgery. What is it? Olivia asked, her voice tinged with pre-operative anxiety. Lily stepped forward. When we get back home to Boston, your dad is going to adopt me officially. I'll be Lily Morgan Wells. We'll be real sisters just like you wanted. Olivia's face transformed with joy. Really, Daddy? Lily will be my sister forever? Forever and ever, Harrison confirmed, his heart full as he watched his daughter's happiness. Dr. Sharma entered the room, signaling it was time. As the nurses prepared to wheel Olivia to the operating theater, Lily leaned over and whispered something in her ear that made Olivia smile and nod. What did you tell her? Harrison asked, as they watched the surgical team take Olivia away. I promised that, no matter what happens with her eyes, I'll always be her sister and her best friend, Lily said simply. And that if she can see me, I'll be wearing a yellow dress because she always says yellow sounds like happiness. The surgery lasted 5 hours. 5 hours in which Harrison, Rose, Elena, and Lily waited, alternating between hopeful conversation and anxious silence. Finally, Dr. Sharma appeared in the waiting room, still in his surgical scrubs. The procedure went exactly as planned, he announced, with a tired smile. Olivia did beautifully. We were able to complete the stem cell implantation and the initial nerve stimulation protocol. And now, Harrison asked, standing to shake the doctor's hand. Now we wait, Dr. Sharma said honestly. Her eyes need to heal completely before we can begin testing visual response. She'll need to keep the bandages on for 3 weeks, and we'll start gradual light exposure after that. Olivia was moved to a private recovery room, where she drifted in and out of medicated sleep. When she was finally alert enough to recognize voices, her first question was predictable. Did it work? Can I see? Harrison stroked her hair gently. We don't know yet, Butterfly. Your eyes need time to heal. You'll need to wear special bandages. For a while. Disappointment flickered across Olivia's face, but she nodded bravely. How long? 3 weeks, Lily answered, climbing carefully onto the edge of the hospital bed. But I'll describe everything that happens so you don't miss anything. And she did. For the next 3 weeks, as they remained in London for Olivia's recovery, Lily became even more diligent in her role as Olivia's eyes. She narrated everything from the changing weather to the expressions on people's faces, creating a rich verbal tapestry that kept Olivia connected to the world hidden behind her bandages. The day of the bandage removal arrived with breathless anticipation. Dr. Sharma had prepared them thoroughly for all possibilities, from no change to partial sight restoration. The procedure would take place in a specially designed room with controllable lighting that could be increased gradually to prevent shock to Olivia's sensitive optic nerves. As promised, Lily wore a bright yellow dress for the occasion. Harrison, Rose and Elena waited anxiously outside, while Dr. Sharma and his team worked with Olivia in the dimly lit room. "Remember," they heard him tell Olivia through the observation window, "your eyes have been in darkness for a long time. Even if the procedure worked, everything will seem very blurry and strange at first. We'll start with just a tiny bit of light." Harrison held his breath as the bandages were carefully removed. Olivia blinked repeatedly, her eyes adjusting to even the minimal light in the room. "I see something," her small voice came through the speaker, filled with wonder and confusion. "It's dark, but not completely dark. There are shapes." Dr. Sharma slowly, incrementally increased the room's lighting. "Can you tell me what you see now, Olivia?" There was a pause, then Olivia's voice again, trembling with emotion. "More. Shapes moving. Is that you, Dr. Sharma?" "Yes, I'm right in front of you," he confirmed. "Can you see my hand moving?" He waved slowly. "Yes." Olivia's excitement was palpable. "It's blurry, but I can see something moving." Harrison felt tears streaming down his face. Beside him, Rose and Elena were also weeping quietly. Lily stood pressed against the observation window, her yellow dress bright even in the dim corridor. "Olivia is doing remarkably well," Dr. Sharma's assistant told them. "Her initial response suggests significant neural pathway activation. It's very promising." After several more minutes of controlled testing, Dr. Sharma opened the door. "We're ready for Lily now," he said with a smile. "Olivia has specifically requested her." Lily looked up at Harrison, suddenly nervous. He nodded encouragingly, and she stepped forward into the room. Through the observation window, they watched as Lily approached Olivia, who was sitting in a specialized examination chair, her eyes wide and searching, her expression a mixture of confusion and wonder. "Olivia," Dr. Sharma said gently, "someone special is here to see you." Lily moved closer into Olivia's limited field of vision. "It's me, Lily," she said softly. "I'm wearing the yellow dress, just like I promised." Olivia's gaze shifted, struggling to focus. Her hands reached out, finding Lily's face as they had done countless times before. But this time there was something new. Her eyes, though unfocused, were tracking her movements. "Lily," Olivia whispered, I think I can see you. You're all blurry, but there's something bright. Is that yellow?" Lily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Yes, it's yellow, like sunshine and happiness." Outside the room, Harrison watched the moment unfold. The moment when his daughter, who had lived in darkness since birth, saw her sister for the first time. It wasn't perfect vision. It might never be, but it was a beginning. A miracle of modern medicine and human connection. Rose placed her hand on Harrison's arm. "Sometimes the universe knows exactly what it's doing," she said softly. Spring blossomed across Evergreen Estate as the 2-year anniversary of what the family now simply called the Cake Day approached. Cherry trees lined the driveway in pink splendor, and tulips created rivers of color across the once formal gardens that had been redesigned with Olivia in mind, featuring plants with strong scents and interesting textures she could appreciate with all her senses. In the sunlit breakfast nook, Harrison reviewed the morning's emails on his tablet while Olivia practiced her visual recognition exercises. At 6 years old, she had made remarkable progress since her surgery in London. While her vision remained limited, approximately 30% of typical sight, with better perception of movement than detail, it had transformed her world completely. "Square," Olivia announced confidently, identifying the shape on the flashcard Lily held up. "Correct." Lily, now 7, beamed with pride. She flipped to the next card. "What color is this triangle?" Olivia squinted, leaning forward slightly. Color recognition remained challenging, especially with pastels or similar hues. "Blue? No, purple." "It's indigo," Lily explained patiently. "Remember, that's the color between blue and purple that's hard to tell apart sometimes." Harrison watched this interaction with quiet amazement. The medical community had been stunned by Olivia's progress. Dr. Sharma had flown to Boston twice to document her case, which had become the most successful example of his procedure to date. The combination of the innovative surgery, Olivia's age, and what Dr. Sharma called extraordinary environmental enrichment, meaning Lily's constant visual coaching, had produced results beyond the most optimistic projections. Elena entered with a fresh pot of coffee. "The caterers called to confirm tomorrow's arrangements, Mr. Wells, and the first guests will begin arriving at 3. Harrison nodded his thanks. Tomorrow marked not only the anniversary of Lily's brave intervention, but also the official launch of 2 initiatives close to his heart: the Sarah Morgan Culinary Arts Foundation and Wells Pharmaceuticals' new Patient Assistance Program, which would provide breakthrough medications at no cost to families without adequate insurance coverage. "Is Grandma Rose coming for breakfast?" Lily asked, setting aside the flashcards. "She's having her physical therapy session this morning," Harrison reminded her, "but she'll join us for lunch." Rose, now approaching 70, had become a quiet force within the household. Though she had initially worried about being a burden, she had found her own role, offering wisdom, maintaining family traditions, and keeping the memory of Lily's mother alive through stories and recipes. The guest house had become her domain, comfortably accessible and equipped with everything she needed, while still allowing her independence. The adoption proceedings had been finalized 6 months after their return from London. Lily Morgan Wells had officially become Olivia's sister and Harrison's daughter, though her relationship with Rose remained as close as ever. The girls shared a special bond, Lily still serving as Olivia's guide to the visual world, Olivia teaching Lily to appreciate sounds, textures, and scents that most people overlooked. Harrison's phone chimed with a news alert. He opened it to find an update on the criminal cases that had forever altered their lives. Edward Blackwood had been sentenced yesterday after a lengthy trial, 20 years without possibility of parole for conspiracy, attempted murder, industrial espionage, and bribery of government officials. Congressman Richardson had received a similar sentence months earlier. Harrison closed the alert without sharing it with the girls. They knew the basic facts of what had happened, that bad people had tried to hurt others with poisoned cake, and that Lily had saved everyone, but he had shielded them from the darker details and ongoing legal proceedings. "Daddy, can we practice in the garden today?" Olivia asked, pushing her practice cards aside. "The vision therapist said natural settings are better than cards." "Of course, Butterfly," Harrison agreed, "after your regular lessons." The girls now shared a classroom in the East Wing where tutors provided personalized education addressing their unique needs. Lily had overcome her early academic gaps and now excelled in science and language arts, while Olivia's curriculum included specialized training to maximize her partial vision alongside traditional subjects. As the girls headed off with their primary tutor, Harrison retreated to his home office to prepare for tomorrow's event. The guest list included many of Boston's influential citizens, but also, at Lily's insistence, the entire staff and resident families from the homeless shelter where she and Rose had once stayed briefly before moving to the apartment in Roxbury. A knock at his office door interrupted his thoughts. Detective Martinez, now Captain Martinez, stood in the doorway. "Good morning, Harrison," she greeted him with the familiarity that had developed over 2 years of case proceedings and occasional social visits. "Sorry to drop by unannounced." "Sophia," Harrison rose to shake her hand. "Always good to see you. What brings you here?" She placed a file folder on his desk. "The Blackwood-Richardson case is officially closed with yesterday's sentencing, but we found something during the final evidence review that you should know about." Harrison raised an eyebrow. "I thought everything had been addressed at trial." "This major crimes, yes," Sophia confirmed, taking a seat across from him. "But some of the peripheral evidence wasn't relevant to the prosecution, so it wasn't presented in court." She opened the folder, revealing photographs of financial records. Blackwood's offshore accounts showed multiple large payments to various associates beyond what we already knew. One payment trail led to a woman named Veronica Chen. The name meant nothing to Harrison. And she is? A private investigator who specializes in corporate espionage, Sophia explained. When we questioned her, she revealed something interesting. Blackwood had hired her 2 years before the charity luncheon incident to investigate potential vulnerabilities in your security, personal and professional. Harrison frowned. I don't see how... She's the one who found Lily and Rose, Sophia interrupted gently. She identified them as potential leverage against you based on a connection you weren't aware of. Harrison stared at her, confused. What connection? I'd never met them before. Sophia slid a document across the desk, a birth certificate for Sarah Elizabeth Morgan, Lily's mother. Look at the father's name. Harrison's eyes widened as he read the name. Robert Wells. My father, he whispered, stunned. That's impossible. He died when I was 14. Not impossible, Sophia said quietly. We verified the DNA. Robert Wells was indeed Lily's maternal grandfather, which makes you and Sarah Morgan half-siblings. Lily is your niece, Harrison. The room seemed to tilt slightly as Harrison processed this revelation. His father, traveling pharmaceutical sales representative in his early career, had apparently had a relationship with Rose during one of his extended trips. A relationship Rose had never mentioned, perhaps not connecting Harrison Wells, the pharmaceutical CEO, with a salesman she'd known briefly decades ago. Does Rose know about this? He asked, his voice barely audible. Sophia shook her head. We only confirmed it yesterday. I wanted you to be the first to know, given tomorrow's event. You can decide how or if to share this information. After Sophia left, Harrison sat motionless at his desk, the birth certificate before him. Memories surfaced, his father's frequent absences during his childhood, the strained relationship between his parents, the whispered arguments he'd pretended not to hear. It made a painful kind of sense. A gentle tap at the door roused him from his thoughts. Rose stood there, leaning lightly on her cane. Elena said you had a police visitor, she said, her perceptive eyes noting his troubled expression. Is everything all right? Harrison hesitated, then gestured for her to sit. Rose, I need to ask you something personal. Something about your daughter's father. Rose's expression shifted subtly. Sarah's father? I haven't thought about him in years. Was his name Robert Wells? Harrison asked directly. Rose's sharp intake of breath confirmed it before she spoke. How did you... Yes, Robert Wells. He was a pharmaceutical salesman who visited the Boston area regularly. Charming, handsome, always talking about his company's newest products. Her eyes narrowed with sudden understanding. He was your father, wasn't he? Harrison nodded, sliding the birth certificate toward her. The police discovered it during their investigation. DNA confirms it. Rose stared at the document, then at Harrison's face as if seeing him anew. I never made the connection. Wells is a common name, and I knew him as Bobby, not Robert. He told me he was divorced. Was that true? No, Harrison said quietly. He was married to my mother until the day he died. I was 14 then. Rose closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this betrayal from decades past. I'm sorry, Harrison. I never would have. She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. This means Lily is your niece, your blood relative. Yes. Does she need to know? Rose asked pragmatically. Would it change anything for the better? Harrison considered this. The adoption was final, the family bonds already formed. Would this revelation strengthen those bonds or complicate them unnecessarily? I don't know, he admitted. What do you think? Rose was silent for a long moment. I think truth has its place, but so does peace. Perhaps someday when the girls are older, we can share this history. For now, she reached across the desk to take his hand. Perhaps it's enough that we know the universe had an even more intricate plan than we realized. Harrison nodded, feeling a strange sense of completion. The puzzle pieces of the past 2 years shifted, slightly, revealing an even more complex picture than he'd imagined. His father, flawed, unfaithful, but still his father, had unknowingly created a connection that would one day save Olivia's life. The following afternoon, Evergreen Estate welcomed over 200 guests for the Jewel Foundation launch. The event was held in the same ballroom where, 2 years earlier, a desperate child had screamed a warning that saved countless lives. Now transformed with spring flowers and natural light streaming through opened curtains, the space bore little resemblance to that fateful day. Olivia and Lily, dressed in complementary blue dresses, greeted guests alongside Harrison and Rose. For many attendees who knew the story, seeing Olivia's partial sight, her ability to navigate with minimal assistance, to recognize familiar faces at close range, was nothing short of miraculous. Mr. Wells, a reporter from the Boston Globe, approached with a digital recorder. Would you say the Wells Patient Assistance Program was inspired by your personal experience with these two remarkable girls? Harrison smiled, drawing both children closer. Absolutely. Olivia taught me that medical breakthroughs mean nothing if they're not accessible to everyone who needs them. And Lily... He met Rose's knowing gaze across the room. Lily showed me that family can be found in the most unexpected places, and that courage comes in all sizes. As the formal program began, Harrison took the podium to address the gathered crowd. 2 years ago, a series of events that could have ended in tragedy instead became the beginning of a remarkable journey. Many of you know parts of this story. How a young girl's extraordinary sense of smell and extraordinary courage prevented a disaster. What you may not know is how that moment transformed not just one life or one family, but an entire community. He gestured to the representatives from local shelters and social service organizations seated in the front row. The Sarah Morgan Culinary Arts Foundation will provide scholarships and vocational training for underprivileged youth interested in food science and culinary arts. And the Wells Patient Assistance Program will ensure that no family has to choose between medication and basic necessities. As applause filled the room, Harrison continued, "But the most profound transformation has been personal. My daughter, Olivia, who was born without sight, can now see the world around her, however imperfectly. My daughter Lily, who once had no stable home, has become the heart of our family. And all of us have learned that sometimes what looks like disaster is actually the universe course-correcting." After the speeches and formal launch, the event transitioned to a garden reception. Harrison found a moment of quiet on the terrace, watching as Lily guided Olivia through a group of guests, both girls navigating the social landscape with confidence that belied their years. "They're quite the team," Eleanor observed, joining him with a glass of lemonade. "Hard to believe how far we've all come." Harrison nodded, thinking of the birth certificate now locked in his desk drawer. Life has a strange way of bringing things full circle. Across the lawn, Rose was sharing a laugh with Dr. Sharma, who had flown in for the event. The doctor had become a regular visitor, monitoring Olivia's progress while developing a protocol based on her success for other young patients. "Daddy," Olivia called, spotting him on the terrace, her vision particularly effective at recognizing familiar figures at a distance. "Come see what Lily and I made." The girls had set up a small table near the koi pond where they were offering homemade cookies to guests. A hand-painted sign announced, "Sarah's Special Recipes, Lily and Olivia's Bakery." "Grandma Rose helped us use Mom's recipe book," Lily explained proudly. "These are the almond cookies that don't have any bitter almonds," she added, with the "ye." Directness of a child referencing a traumatic event without fully understanding its significance. Harrison sampled a cookie, finding it delicious. "Your mother would be very proud," he told Lily, the words carrying deeper meaning than she could know. As the afternoon light softened toward evening, Harrison gathered with his family near the central fountain for photographs. Rose, elegant, in a lavender dress. Eleanor, who had become far more than a nurse to all of them. Olivia, her blue eyes now focused on the camera as best she could manage. And Lily, whose quick thinking and courage had catalyzed everything. "Everybody say family," the photographer instructed. As they spoke the word in unison, Harrison reflected on its meaning. Family was not merely biological connection, though that existed here in ways he was still processing. Family was found in shared experiences, in mutual support, in choosing each other daily despite differences and difficulties. The grounds of Evergreen Estate, once silent despite their beauty, now resonated with children's laughter. The mansion, once a showcase of wealth without warmth, had become a true home, and Harrison himself, once defined by ambition and loss, had discovered that his greatest achievement had nothing to do with pharmaceuticals or fortune. Later that night, after guests had departed and the girls were asleep, Harrison stood in the doorway of their shared bedroom, watching their peaceful faces. On Olivia's nightstand sat special glasses that enhanced contrast for her limited vision. On Lily's, a framed photograph of her mother, Sarah Morgan, the half-sister Harrison had never known. Rose joined him in the hallway, her expression serene. "They'll be all right, these girls of ours," she said softly. "Whatever comes next." Harrison nodded, thinking of all they had overcome and all that lay ahead. The ongoing medical treatments for Olivia, the eventual truth about their family connection, the challenges that would inevitably arise as the girls grew. "Yes," he agreed. "They will be, we all will." And in that moment of quiet certainty, surrounded by the family that fate and courage had assembled, Harrison Wells, pharmaceutical magnate, father, brother, uncle, finally understood what true wealth meant. It wasn't measured in dollars, or achievements or influence, but in second chances, unexpected connections, and the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. In a villa once defined by luxury and loneliness, two little girls from opposite worlds had found each other against impossible odds. A broken family had been reassembled into something stronger and more beautiful than its original pieces. And a man who had everything money could buy had discovered the only thing that truly mattered, the transformative power of love, freely, given and gratefully received. Film de Historia. Did you enjoy the emotional journey of Harrison, Olivia, Lily and Rose? Their story reminds us that sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our biggest challenges. For more heartwarming tales of family, courage and unexpected connections, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a new story. If this narrative touched your heart, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the power of love to transform even the darkest circumstances. Join our community of storytellers and listeners. We can't wait to share our next adventure with you.